Hello and welcome back to another episode of the We're Brothers podcast. We're coming at you on April 10th, 2022, Sunday. Taylor, what's going on, bro? I wasn't prepared for this. Bro Migo.
Not much.
Wait.
Well, okay, back up. Rewind.
What's going on, my Brodius Maximus?
Are we throwing this back to ancient Roman times? Et tu, Brute, or something like that.
That was good. Yeah, something like that.
Something like that.
Long time no see.
I know, right? What's it been? 3 hours?
It's been about 3 hours.
Dude, it was a great weekend. My brother came to visit, which was awesome. Yesterday was my son's birthday, and got to hang out with him. Took him to the arcade. He turned 6 yesterday, officially at 10:06 in the morning. So, and then spent the afternoon with you, my lovely sister-in-law, and our folks. It was great.
Yep, because it is also, not only is it your son's, my nephew's birthday, it is also our father's birthday yesterday.
That's right. That's how I planned it when Braden was born.
Yeah. So that was funny. Yeah, it was a really good weekend, and I'm glad that we were able to get together, and then now we're recording this today. So that was a lot of fun. We got to play some catch. That was right. Good. I think I hurt my back a little bit.
Ken can't feel his shoulder or his back right now.
So but other than that, it was a good weekend. I'm glad we got to see each other in person.
I know it was good to I think the biggest struggle is, so this week our deep dive is going to be top 10 GameCube games. And again, I think we should clarify. I assume you were on the same path, although we never really discussed this. This is our favorite top 10, not necessarily would you say the best top 10, kind of like we do with RPGs.
Yeah, this is objective,
Yeah, subjective.
Subjective. That's what I said. This is subjective.
Yeah.
Top GameCube games. And it's funny, when we initially were kicking around ideas on what to do with this episode, we initially thought, 10 games, no problem. But then we're like, wait a second, should we do 5 games, 6 games? But then going through the list, we did realize, okay, there are enough games on GameCube that we can put in a good top 10. I was surprised. It's actually really cool to go back and look at some of these games, because I feel like the games from the GameCube era are very overlooked at times, I would say.
Yeah, I felt like, when we first kicked this idea around, we were like, right away, we're going to do top 10. And then a couple days into the week, I was like, dude, I don't know if I can come up with the top 10. So we did top 5. And then last minute yesterday, we were like, no. It was this morning. We were like, all right, we'll go back to top 10 once we kind of started really diving into a bunch of these games. But I think that's a valid point. GameCube games, I think, are definitely overlooked. I feel like in terms of 3D, going from N64 to GameCube, and I don't know, maybe you feel differently, I feel like graphically was probably one of the biggest leaps in that generation. N64 really kind of introduced the 3D gaming, but everything was very polygon, very blocky, whereas things got smoothed out a significant amount, I feel like, going from N64 to GameCube. Would you agree?
From a Nintendo's perspective,
yeah,
I definitely, I think that, the leap from N64, I mean, I guess really looking back on it, I mean, the leap from Super Nintendo to N64 was a pretty big jump, but definitely from N64 to GameCube, I would also say that was a very, very big leap.
Yeah, in terms of obviously, because you're going from 2D to 3D, it was a pretty big leap. But you had very smoothed out polygons, I felt like, in Super Nintendo. But the 3D to 3D, there was a huge leap between, more so than I think GameCube to Wii.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So once we started going through it, and I guess just to clarify, there's a lot of games that I saw on the list that I knew were good games. I just had never played. So that's why, again, I limited my top 10 list to games I had played. Not necessarily beaten, but just played a fair amount of on my top 10.
Yeah. Now actually, I'm just thinking of another idea for an episode that we could do. We could do top games that we have never played. That we want to.
I will get my receptionist to mark that down. Hey, excuse me, Ryder, can you mark that down, please?
Ryder. That was good.
He's just staring at me. He's my dog. He has no opposable thumb to write things down with.
He can slobber it down though.
Oh my goodness, can he slobber? So, anyways, yeah. Well, I say so. First of all, we're gonna jump into our news of the week here, and Ken had put together. He had one piece of news that he submitted to me, and before I had opened it, I had gone through my list of news, and the very first thing on my list happened to be the exact same thing that Ken had listed, and I was so excited to be able to share this news with him until I opened up his email and realized he had sent me the exact same thing. We're brothers.
What can we say?
So Ken, I'll let you kick this off.
Yeah, so this one is really cool. This is really exciting. So this not only does it have to do with video games, it has to do with personally my favorite author and one of our favorite authors.
Yes.
Brandon Sanderson. For those of you out there who have never read or are fantasy fans, fantasy genre fans, and have never heard of Brandon Sanderson, highly recommend his books. He is a huge, I don't even necessarily want to say up and coming author. I mean, he's
full fledged.
He's here. He's in it. His Cosmere series are top notch. Hugely, we both recommend. I imagine safe to say to start with the Mistborn series.
Absolutely.
But even if you don't read any of the books, keep your ears out because Brandon Sanderson, he's going to have either on Amazon Prime, Netflix, some at any time, within the next handful of years, these books are going to be made into movies, TV shows. It's only a matter of time.
Yeah.
The new Wheel of Time show that was based on the Wheel of Time books, Brandon Sanderson, not only did he finish writing, he's not the original author of the series, but he finished writing the series after the author passed away, and he's an executive producer on the show. So those of you out there may have heard his name through that, but fantastic author, excellent stuff. So sorry for the little bit of tangent there.
Yeah, we could do an entire episode, I think,
on Brandon Sanderson.
Yeah.
But so Brandon Sanderson is a big video game fan, and he is also a big video game fan of From Software. What games does From Software make? Well, they make little known titles such as Elden Ring and the Dark Souls series. And the big Bandai Namco is another big gaming publisher,
mm-hmm.
and they publish the games for the From Software games. So on a live stream a couple weeks ago now, I think, Brandon Sanderson got a package from Bandai Namco, and this package was an Elden Ring package. And they sent him a bunch of goodies, a bunch of collectibles from the Elden Ring, from the Elden Ring franchise. And along in the package was a letter from Bandai Namco saying that they wanted to work and collab with Brandon Sanderson. So whether that's an original, an original storyline. So probably have touched on this with all the talk that we've done about Elden Ring. Just to give a little background info, Elden Ring, the storyline was developed by J.R.R. Martin, who came up and wrote Game of Thrones. Yeah. So back, there was another article that came out a couple months ago where Brandon Sanderson was upset that Bandai Namco, or that From Software, went to J.R.R. Martin to write for the game, because Brandon Sanderson, according to Brandon Sanderson, J.R.R. Martin does not play video games, is not in the video game world at all. And so Brandon Sanderson was like, why wouldn't they come to me? I am the one who plays their games. I love this stuff. This is what I love their games. And so for him to receive that, they clearly heard him loud and clear. And so that is really cool. So Taylor, let me ask you this. If, and hope obviously now, when Brandon Sanderson does collab with Bandai Namco, do you want to see an original brand new Sanderson storyline in a game, new universe? or do you want to see one of Sanderson's written works from his Cosmere series turned into a game?
Yes. All of the
Okay.
above. No, I mean, I could see this going either way. Certainly something he had said to them, he has some ideas and he's willing to like talk to them and work with them. But I was just thinking as you're saying that, like my initial thought was just doing something original. But then I started thinking about like Mistborn as a video game would be freaking epic to be able to like gain different abilities if you were like for those who haven't read the book, you have these metals that you can basically drink and absorb in your body, and each one will give you different abilities. So I can imagine going through a game where you're discovering these different metals and what they can do and like how they can help you in the game. I think would be freaking amazing. But yeah, I can see that, or like I'd say most likely to be an original works, kind of like Elden Ring. But yeah, I'd be happy with either. Would be pretty cool. I mean, he has already done. He wrote a book series based on Infinity Blade, and then also I don't know if you had heard this. I didn't know this until I came across this article. Do you know about the skin that's in one of the Fortnite updates?
Yes, Kelsier
Kelsier?
is a skin in Fortnite.
Yeah, and he's one of the main. Well, I say main. He's a prominent character from the Mistborn series from him, which I thought was pretty cool. He's also done work with Magic the Gathering as well. So again, we could do an entire episode on Sanderson, but yeah, I came across this news. You came across this news. I thought this was pretty cool for sure. And again, yeah, anybody who's never checked out his work, if you're a fan of anything from Tolkien or Martin, you have to check out Sanderson's work. He just takes it to a whole new level when it comes to an immersive fantasy adventure type story.
Yeah, and just a really really brief. So all of his work in the Cosmere, they are all their own standalone stories, but they all take place on different planets with different magic systems, but all the planets are within the same universe. So with each stories, they are connected just contained within the planet, but then there is this overarching storyline within the Cosmere. So the books in some way, shape, and form are all connected, but you don't need to have read every single book to enjoy each book of from its own. So
very well,
highly recommend
it. So moving on from Sanderson, another thing that was pretty cool, it was unveiled the new Unreal Engine 5 was released along with the shooter Lyra. Have you seen any screenshots from these demos from this new Unreal Engine 5, Ken?
So I've watched the Unreal 5 trailer.
Okay. Yeah, when I saw they released this, I was looking at some of the screenshots, and it is some of them are almost indistinguishable from a real photograph. Unbelievable. But basically, the two big things they focused on with this new engine was basically the light adapts to the world naturally and easily, and then also, and this is where things are so realistic, it allowed developers to import film quality visual assets while maintaining a real time frame rate without dips in fidelity, according to the article on IGN.com. But yeah, the graphics of this new engine is absolutely unbelievable. I'm super excited to see what kind of games are coming out with this engine.
So I don't remember. I don't two things. I don't remember if this is specifically Unreal Engine 5, but a few months ago at a some game conference, there's a new Matrix game that's coming out, and they show
this is with the Unreal Engine 5.
Okay, I thought so. Because same thing, yeah, they showcased a real live picture like
with Keanu Reeves.
Of Keanu Reeves, and then Unreal 5 engine running same like headshot of Keanu Reeves, and I was like, which one's the real one?
Yeah, I saw they had like a close up of his face in the article, and yeah, same thing. If they weren't like, yeah, this is from the new Unreal Engine 5, I would have, from a quick glance, I'd be like, holy crap, it's Keanu Reeves. But this is like truly like next level stuff for immersive graphics. It was pretty amazing. So again, I'm super excited to see what games are going to be on the horizon with this new engine.
Yeah, it's pretty unreal. I mean, talking about the GameCube and the jumps and graphics, things like that. It's really funny to, I just with each with each leap forward,
Mhm.
the same thing is said, like, oh my, oh my god, this looks almost real, like saying that back, like in the PlayStation days, PS2 days, like
Yeah.
how can I get it any clearer than this? And then it's
Well, I
just
think
pretty
the
wild.
old saying also. So our next piece of news will kind of tie into this in a reverse kind of way. So for those of you who have the Nintendo Switch Online account, so I think Friday they're going to be dropping the new, well, not true, the old Mario Golf be coming to the Switch. And it's often said that even though graphics improve all the time, having a fun game to play with a good story, not that Mario Golf has a good story, but just having a game that's fun to play never goes out of date. I'm a big fan of these Mario Golf games. Mostly any of the golf games, to be honest with you. But yeah, just a little piece of news that'll be coming on the 15th, which is this coming Friday. And Ken, have you ever played any of the like Mario Golf, Mario Tennis, any of those?
I don't think I've ever played Mario Tennis, but yeah, definitely have played Mario Golf. Yep, very fun.
A lot of fun. You ever played Ghost Recon?
I've played a couple different Ghost Recon games, but when it comes to, I believe Ghost Recon, that's part of the Tom Clancy, like one of Tom
Yeah.
Clancy's, right? Ghost Recon, yeah.
Well, how would
Um, I was just gonna say that really, I mean, I played the Division, and there was a Ghost Recon game that I played back for the 360 that was, I think, was like 2148 or something. I don't
well,
know.
the reason I ask is how would you like to play the 17th installment in the series,
I
which will be
wouldn't.
coming out next year? I was
I wouldn't.
Yeah, I just saw that. So they announced the next sequel was in development, and it's the 17th in the series. So apparently, it's fairly popular.
Yeah, good for. I mean, hey, good for them. 17th game. Hopefully it's a good one. Hopefully it does well.
Yeah. We talked about this a few weeks ago for an upcoming news, and now has been released. The 4 new modes were added to Metroid Dread: the Boss Rush, Survival Rush, Dread mode, and then the Practice mode. So, for any of you who have Metroid Dread, get it cracking.
Taylor, have you played Metroid Dread yet?
I have not. It's on my list. I'm still working my way through some other games. I am almost done Super Mario 3D World for the Switch, and yeah, I'm well almost done in terms of getting all the stamps. I finally made it onto the flower portion of Star Road, which is kind of an oxymoron, but yeah, made it onto the flower portion of Star Road with getting all the characters. Hopefully, the next day or two, I'll be done with it and moving on to my next one. But yeah, it's on my list.
Yeah, I'm not. I'll touch on it later since we're talking about GameCube games. Metroid definitely is going to come up.
Oh, yeah.
But
So
when doing research for today's episode, I was really curious. Not curious, but I was surprised to find out the chronological order as far as like the in like universe timeline of
Mhm.
Metroid and where Dread falls into it.
Where does it fall into it?
Dread is actually like the most recent. It's the
In the
most
timeline.
recent game, but it's also the most recent in the timeline.
Oh, okay.
But we can touch on that more when.
Perfect. This thing I thought was pretty cool. I came across. So the director of the new Sonic the Hedgehog movie, Jeff Fowler, was asked in an interview if he would like to do a movie of Super Smash Brothers, and he said absolutely, he would love to do Super Smash Brothers movie. I think that could be a super cool concept. And could you imagine Sonic and Mario fighting each other on the big screen?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I wonder. Well, because obviously Sonic is in. Sonic came into Smash Brothers and Super Smash Brothers Brawl for the Wii,
Yep.
and I mean he's already in there, so that'd be a really cool. I mean, obviously Marvel in like this like multiverse type thing is already so prevalent, say in the Marvel Disney films. So having this multi-universe, well, and also, hey, Nintendo is doing a Mario movie.
I
so
know.
so
You could
um
see a little mashup.
yep. So and I don't know if you know this or not, because I don't know as much as obviously some people out there, but supposedly there is a lot of lore, I guess, in the Smash Brothers universe, I guess. So there is a movie there, and obviously, I think Smash Brothers being such a fan favorite game, I think that movie could do quite well because obviously I haven't seen which I really should, especially because the second Sonic movie is either out or is about to come out. And
Yeah, I
I'm a
think
big
it came
fan.
out this weekend.
I'm a big fan of Knuckles, so I'm really excited to see that. I think that could do quite well.
Yeah, I saw the first one. I absolutely loved it. I watched it with my son, and I'm looking forward to the second one. But it's funny when you talk about the kind of a mashup like that. All I can think about is like a Nintendo version of Avengers, where like you're recruiting Sonic, and then you got Mario, and
Yeah,
you're gonna recruit, Metroid, Samus from Metroid, and then they all come together for a big mashup, and they have to fight each other. That'd be pretty dope.
that would be. So, you told me this story earlier this morning, but just because you're talking about Sonic, I think that this would be a really funny story for our listeners.
Yeah. So, and the story he's referring to is my son and I. He just turned 6 yesterday, and I was saying to him last weekend if he was looking forward to the new Sonic movie because we watched the first one together, and he starts yelling at me that he's already seen it, and I started yelling back at him. Not necessarily yelling at him. I kept talking sternly back to him, asking him, "How could you have seen it? It's not even out yet." And he's telling me that he just saw it on his tablet. I'm like, "Nope, you probably saw the trailer." "No, Dad, I saw the entire thing." And I go, "Well, the entire thing is several hours long, so I doubt you watched it on." So this goes back and forth for several minutes. And later on that day, he finally brings me over his tablet, and an advertising popped up for the trailer of the Sonic 2 movie. And he goes, "See, it's right here. I watched the entire thing." I go, "Yes, that's the trailer. I told you at the beginning. You haven't seen the whole movie." And then he was like, "Oh, well, I'd like to see the whole movie." "Well, you're not going to now. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to tell you all about it." Yeah, so it was good times. But we argued back and forth for a while about whether or not he had actually seen Sonic 2. And he has not. He's only seen the trailer.
Well, good. Well, now he's really looking forward to seeing.
That's right. So speaking of trailers, last piece of news we have here, which I know is going to be right up Ken's alley, Kingdom Hearts 4. The trailer dropped at their 20th anniversary event. Ken, are you excited for Kingdom Hearts 4?
I am very excited. I had no idea that this was a huge surprise, considering the time frame between Kingdom Hearts 2 and Kingdom Hearts 3 was, I believe it was well over 10 years. I mean, there was other Kingdom Hearts games in between, but the actual numbered titles from 2 to 3 were crazy long, many years. So and 3 just came out, I believe, maybe 2 years ago max. And so for us to already get a trailer for Kingdom Hearts 4 was shocking. Very, very surprising. But there was also like a couple of other, like there was an iOS, an Android, a mobile game that's going to be coming out. Yeah. There's going to be a mobile game that's coming out of another Kingdom Hearts side story. For those of you out there who obviously know anything about Kingdom Hearts, the lore and story of that game is all over the place. Every time a new Kingdom Hearts game comes out, I need to go on YouTube and watch like an hour and a half long video explaining the whole story up to that point, because it's just so all over the place. As much as I love Kingdom Hearts, I still haven't played through Kingdom Hearts 3. I'm hoping that it'll go on sale at some point before 4 comes out, so I can play through that. But still, the trailer looks awesome. It actually showed gameplay from it, and it looks really cool. So
I watched the trailer earlier. Actually, I posted it to our page on Facebook earlier today. But it looks really cool. I've never played any of the Kingdom Hearts game. I know you keep yelling at me that I need to, and I'm just gonna keep throwing this out there. It's on my list. Someday I will get through this list of epic games that I need to play through, but it's on the list.
Yeah, one day when we get paid to do this for a living, those games are getting knocked out in no time.
I know, yeah. Instead of actually working 40 to 50 hours a week, I can just play video games 40 to 50 hours a week.
Hey, it's doable.
It's doable. So if you want to see that happen, and you can stop listening to me say it's on my list, just get you and a couple million of your friends to download the podcast. So, I think that covers the news for this week. Ken, we have a ginormous list of games coming out this week.
We do.
It's gonna take me a while to get through it. Yeah, I don't know if we can fit it all in. But
Well,
let's
we,
start.
we better get started. So the first game on the list is 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. Comes out for the Nintendo Switch on April 12th. This comes from the game developer, the game studio Atlas. This comes from their website. It reads, Vanillaware, the storytellers behind Odin's Sphere and Dragon's Crown, craft a sci-fi mystery epic spanning 13 intertwining stories. Uncover the truth and delve into a 2D side-scrolling adventure featuring gorgeous art and environments. Then battle the kaiju in fast-paced top-down combat. Customize the Sentinels with an arsenal of mech suit weaponry and fight to defend humanity.
Wow.
So I really haven't seen anything on this game. I know it's already. I'm pretty sure that it's already come out for like PlayStation 4, and a couple other different systems, I believe. So now it's just coming to Switch. What I can say though is that this game developer, I've never played Odin's Sphere, but I have played Dragon's Crown. Dragon's Crown is an awesome RPG. Really, 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 really awesome RPG. So I would recommend checking this out because Dragon's Crown, very highly rated RPG from them.
Perfect.
So, and then the next game to get moving along, which is the last game, there are really only two big games coming out this week, is Road 96. This is coming out for the PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S. This has already come out for the PC, but this will be releasing for all these other systems on April 14th. It's Steam's description reads, hitchhike your way to freedom in this crazy procedurally generated road trip. No one's road is the same. When I was looking this up on Steam, this looks like it has gotten a ton of awards. This has never been on my radar, but this has gotten a ton of awards, really highly rated and reviewed. I mean, it kind of just looks like the best way I can describe it is, you remember those books when you're a kid where it's like you read a page and then at the bottom it's like a choose your adventure, it's like,
Goosebumps used to have that.
Yeah, like if you want this to happen, go to page 46, and then you turn and it's like, go to page 27.
So like you die, you're like, no, I'm going back. I didn't take my finger off the page. I'm gonna use a different page.
So this almost feels like that.
Like, this is nothing like that.
it's just like this looks like this crazy wide, like with a really cool story, and yeah, it really kind of interesting looking. So yeah,
so is it like a open adventure? Like, are you walking around or are you driving?
I think some of it you can be on a motorcycle. It looks like some of it you can, be on a drive, well, it says hitchhike your way to freedom in this crazy procedural generated road trip. So I don't know. It's really interesting looking. I don't know, kind of cool.
Very cool. Well, man, 2 whole games on our list this week to look forward to: 13 Sentinels and Road 96. Get it while they're hot.
Yeah. So
flying off the press.
But as we move forward,
yes,
to this week in history, some pretty cool titles.
Yep.
We have The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. This came out 30 years ago this week in 1992.
This is one I never originally played on the Super Nintendo, but I played through it with other means, and I absolutely, this is one I can highly, widely regarded as one of the best Zelda games of all time. Yeah, just in terms of, again, gameplay, amazing. Absolutely love A Link to the Past.
Yep, very good game. Another favorite of ours, I was happy to see, is Golden Sun: The Lost Age. Came out 19 years ago, back in 2003. So this obviously was the sequel to the first Golden Sun game, that just continued the story of the first Golden Sun game for the Game Boy Advance.
Very nice.
And last but not least, one of my favorite games of all time, Dark Souls 3, came out this week 6 years ago, back in 2016.
It's amazing. Where does the time go?
Yeah. Hard to believe that there was 6 years between Dark Souls 3 and Elden Ring.
What were they doing with all that time?
Making Elden Ring.
Apparently making fancy underwear and a wall you had to hit 50 times to get to break.
Fancy underwear?
You haven't heard about that in Elden Ring?
I don't think so.
Apparently, I've just seen a couple headlines where people have found some sort of random fancy underwear they keep talking about in Elden Ring. I figured you would have known about this.
I'm gonna have to look into this.
Careful what you Google. You're like fancy underwear. Oh,
Oh
Elden
God!
Ring. And then I read something about a wall that somebody bashed 50 times and it led to a secret.
Yeah, so in all like the Dark Souls franchise, there's what's called illusionary walls,
Yeah.
and so it's areas in dungeons and stuff where it's just a wall and you hit it and then it disappears. So yeah, I've heard about that.
When you had to hit 50 times to get it to open up.
Yeah, with this wall, I do not know where it is.
I was say, I wonder who the poor sap is. He just goes around to every wall in the game. He just starts bashing on. And he's like, all right, 1, 2, 3, there's 50. Nope, nothing here. Moves over 5 feet. 1, 2, 3, 50. Nope, nothing here.
Well, the worst part is now you have to. Now that someone's found a wall, they're gonna go back to all the other games. Like, there's got to be another 50 wall here.
Well, I read somebody earlier when I was doing research. It wasn't in our news because it was just a little small piece. But since you brought up Elden Ring, somebody
when don't we bring up Elden Ring?
Beat the game without taking any damage or giving any damage through the entire game.
People have way too much time on their hands.
Right? It's like Breath of the Wild. I saw a guy who made it through the entire game, like 100% completion, without taking a single piece of damage.
Yeah, so we're going to continue to see things like that from Elden Ring because it's kind of a thing with FromSoft games, like with the Dark Souls franchise and all that. People come up with the craziest ways to beat these games. Mm-hmm. Like, for instance, and I believe it was Dark Souls 3, but it could have been a whole whatever slew of them. You're familiar with Guitar Hero, right?
Yep.
Are you familiar with Rock Band? They have the drums. Yep. Someone linked up like the drums to the controls and like beat Dark Souls just playing the drums. Yeah, it's crazy. I prefer playing it the normal way, but hey, to each his own.
I know, right? So, well, we got news, we got new games, and our history. Now I'm super excited to dive into this deep dive for us. We were kicking around ideas for this week, and Ken threw out their GameCube. And at first, again, I was like, I don't know how many. I've gone through the list. There's probably a solid 15 to 20 games I've played a little bit of on the GameCube. We owned a GameCube. We had a number of these games. But it's a console that, again, for whatever reason, for many reasons, did not get as much love as some of the other consoles of this generation. In fact, if you take away Virtual Boy, which I guess we don't really count as a console per se, but it's the second worst selling console in Nintendo's history, which I was not aware of when we started doing the research. Did you know about that, Ken?
I did not.
So the poor Wii U is at the bottom of that list with 13.5 million units sold worldwide. And then coming
we don't even contribute to that.
I know, yeah, that's the one we couldn't even get into, unfortunately. Sorry, Nintendo. And then you got the poor GameCube coming in second here with 22 million. And what's interesting is there had been a steady decline in consoles sold for Nintendo up to this point before the amazing Wii came out. Because N64, same generation of the PS1, and the PS1 far outsold the N64. N64 sold roughly 33 million units, and then you drop another 11 million units off of that when GameCube came out. I know a big part of it had to do with them finally converting from cartridges to discs, but again, they were these mini discs, which couldn't hold nearly as much data as a PS2 disc or the Xbox. And I feel like that was probably one of the biggest reasons why this console just did not sell in the manner that the other ones did.
Yeah, I don't know what the reasoning was for the mini discs.
Other than just trying to be something different, I guess. I think they had two missteps with this generation for this console for Nintendo. One was the mini disc, and two, the launch title for it wasn't Mario and it wasn't a Zelda game either. We all talk and joke about Luigi never getting any love, but this is what happens when you get the love is you get the launch title of Luigi's Mansion, and Super Mario Sunshine came along far later in the life cycle. And then, of course, you had all this hype for the new Zelda game, which then ended up being Wind Waker, which was not one of the most fondly remembered Zelda games, in my opinion. And
Oh, be careful who you say that to.
I'm just saying, compared to the hype, because if you remember when they showed the initial demo for the new Zelda game, it looked
Yes.
amazing, and then they
Yeah.
completely corrected course when Wind Waker came out. And this is actually something I'll touch on later on in our deep dive as well. So anyway, so we're focusing on our top 10 for GameCube games. Ken, would you like to kick us off with some honorable mentions?
Yes. Well, I do have a quick question
Oh,
for
sure.
you. Are you like I already know what the answer is going to be, but for the sake of the episode, are you a fan of GameCube? Did you like the GameCube?
I did, yes. It was the first console from Nintendo that had like you could get the wireless controllers. We had the
Wavebird.
Wavebird, that's what it was, yeah.
Yep.
Which I liked a lot. I felt like the controllers were really comfortable, very intuitive. And just again, like we said earlier, the graphic jump from N64 to GameCube, I thought was pretty amazing. And then I don't feel like their library of games wasn't as robust as obviously we've seen in the past. But I think in terms of good games, like great games, there were some like great games that still stand up to this day in terms of graphics and story.
Yeah, going through the list, I was surprised and be like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, and it definitely it took
like the Kool-Aid. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was. It definitely took. I feel like took a while for the games to kind of to roll out because you probably remember this, but when we got the GameCube for Christmas, after Christmas following the launch of the GameCube, and I remember we got 3 games for it, and it was Luigi's Mansion,
Yep,
Wave Race Blue Storm, and Crazy Taxi, and those were the 3 games that came with it. And Mom and Dad, you did the best you could because that's really all they had at launch.
yeah,
And those games they got stale real quick. So
yeah. Luigi's
spoiler
Man-
alert, none of those games are on my list.
well, Luigi's Mansion was good game, but it was one of the big criticisms was it was a very short game. It did not take very long to make it through that game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, those were the 3 games we had at launch, but got significantly better. So, yeah, with that being said, yeah, so I have 2 honorable mentions. The first one, I could go in a very underrated game, but there was a game for the GameCube called Custom Robo, and it essentially was a custom like mech fighter game. So you like had the overworld, and you were this like regular like anime looking protagonist, and people had these things called custom robos, and you customized these robot mechs, kind of looked like Gundams,
Gundam style.
Little different, but and like you could equip like different boosters, and you could equip different guns, and then you would fight on this battlefield. But it wasn't first person, it wasn't third person, it was like a top down arena where you could see, and then you could control your little robot fighter. And it was just a really cool mech fighting game, and had the RPG type elements and stuff. So Custom Robo I have on there as an honorable mention. And then do you want me to give both
Oh,
of mine?
sure, go ahead. Yeah, go for it.
And this one was really hard for me to not put on the list, but after going through everything, it just didn't find its way on there. So I have to put it as an honorable mention. But one of my favorite fighting games is Bloody Roar Primal Fury. I thought this was such a cool fighting game. Every fighter they could transform into some sort of animal. So like the main character, he could transform into a wolf, and it was cool because it wasn't like you transformed into like just the animal, like you turned into like this humanoid like animal hybrid.
Yeah.
And so it was like really flashy, really cool fighting game. And yeah, and they had a Bloody Roar Primal Fury, I think, was actually like the 3rd entry or 4th entry in the series. They had previously been on PlayStation prior to that, but then they also were on Xbox. But yeah, but Bloody Roar Primal Fury was for the GameCube. Awesome fighting game. It'd be really cool to see this franchise come back in some way, shape, or form.
Very good list. And I'm gonna tell you something, Ken, that after you left, I know we were talking about how many honorable mentions. I snuck in a third one on mine.
You gotta be kidding me.
Well, so I camped my two, and then afterwards I was like, this is actually a combination of several games in a series.
Oh, here we go.
So my honorable mentions, I love this series. So you have the combination from Midway of NFL Blitz, NHL Hits, and MLB Slugfest. I loved any and all of these games. Just the over-the-top antics of these games, I absolutely loved. And again, the graphics on the system, I thought was just so cutting edge at the time when GameCube came out. And they were just so much fun to get into fights and to hit people and just be over the top with these guys. So I kind of combined those three series, the Blitz, the Hits, and the Slugfest, into one
Blitz,
of my
the
honorable,
hits, and the boom shakalakas.
which I mentioned this to you when you were here, that I thought it was weird that the game that kind of started this all for them was NBA Jam, and yet I haven't seen anything since the Super Nintendo for them. But they were, I guess, the spiritual successors to NBA Jam. So officially number 2 on my honorable mentions is also a fighting game. Another one that my brother introduced me to, Soul Calibur 2.
That's an honorable mention?
Yes, okay. Jeez, this is my list. Get out of here.
Oh my god.
Soul Calibur 2, released July 10th, 2002, developed by Project Soul, published by Namco. Brandon Sanderson.
Hold,
What? Oh my goodness. Wow.
don't go too far into it.
I'm not. Stop talking. You're ruining our podcast. No. I'm not going too far into it. Just a couple of bullet points on these. Basically, what? You give me this look like you don't want me to say anything. It's a fighting game. End of story.
No,
Anyway,
because since it's just an honorable mention of yours.
Well, one thing I thought was cool about this is that they had console specific characters. So you had a ton of characters you play as, but GameCube you could play as Link, right?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. Xbox you could play as Spawn, was the one of the secret characters, and then PlayStation you had Heihachi Mishima from Tekken. But did you know there was supposed to be a different character for the PlayStation version?
Yep, I did know.
Who?
Cloud.
Nope, it's Cloud. Anyway, so that's one of my honorable mentions. That's all I was gonna say. Don't give me that look.
Yep, keep going. What's your
What?
next one?
Oh my goodness. I'm done with this episode. I don't want to keep going. My second honorable mention, Super Mario Sunshine. What do you want me to say about Super Mario Sunshine? It's a Mario game. I put this in my honorable mentions because it was, in my opinion, was too similar to Mario 64. Like, certainly graphics, it was a lot better. But I enjoyed it, but I wouldn't put it in my top 10. So it's in my honorable mentions.
You just played through that a couple months ago?
Yeah,
right?
when I got the Super Mario 3D All-Star Pack for the Switch. So I haven't jumped into Galaxy yet, but I played through Sunshine. I'm glad I played through it. And it's a fun game, but it felt more tedious than anything, in my opinion. Which normally doesn't bug me, but for whatever reason, this one it did.
I've never played Sunshine, but it seemed like you were playing it for a while. Was it long? Did it seem like it was long?
It was a long game, but like I said, a lot of it was also tedious. So like there's several worlds, but then each world you had to go into, I think 8 times. Because every time you go into it, you would select a different star that you had to acquire in that level. And so each world, and every time you went into it, things were changed a little bit depending on which star you were selecting to go after.
I see.
Yeah, so there was a lot of levels, but then there were variations on each level depending on which star you were going to get.
Very cool.
So, yeah. So those are my 2.5 honorable mentions.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yep.
Well, Taylor, why don't you keep on going? Why don't you just go ahead and hit us with your number 10?
My number 10. Well, so I feel a little weird saying my number 10 because this is one that we just mentioned as one of the reasons why the GameCube failed. So my number 10 was Luigi's Mansion.
Okay.
So this was a launch title for the GameCube, and it was Luigi's second solo game. Basically, you're searching for Mario through a haunted mansion, capturing ghosts using this vacuum cleaner supplied by Professor Egad. and you use these flashlights to stun ghosts. It was the 5th best-selling game for the GameCube. I'm sure part of that had to do with the fact that it was a launch title and often was bundled with the GameCube, but still sold 3.3 million copies. And there were, it was popular enough where 2 sequels were made for it. But one thing I thought was interesting when I was reading up on this, early concepts of this had it as a role-playing style game, and they also had ideas of making real-time changes to the rooms, as well as having a cave that was under the mansion. But all these ideas were scrapped and eventually came out. And again, we touched on one of the criticisms of it was too short. Again, I really liked it a lot. I thought it was a fun, kind of easy game to play through, but it was kind of short. But I put it in my top 10 just because it was his first kind of like big game debut for Luigi, I felt like. And it was fun. It was enjoyable.
Yeah, I remember watching you play through it. I did not. I have not played it. Not a type of game that I was ever really interested in, but as I loved to do and still like to do, considering I watched you play some levels of Mario last night. Growing up, one of my favorite things was to watch you play through video games. So I have fond memories of watching you play through this one.
Since you just touched on that, I didn't get a chance to ask you since you fell asleep while watching me play. What did you think of Super Mario 3D World?
Yeah, pretty cool. Definitely a very different concept of a Mario game. So yeah, it looked fun. I like the look of the cat suit. That was cool.
Yeah, that was cool. All right,
so
I know you kept saying you want to see it, and you had entertained ideas of playing it someday. Is it something that you'd be interested in playing, or not so much?
No, definitely not. No, saying you play it was enough for me. I don't need to waste my time with it.
Oh wow, that's amazing, huh? We love you, Nintendo.
So yeah, so good pick at number 10.
Oh, sure. Except you didn't even care about it.
Nope. But okay. So my number 10.
Go, Ken. What's your number 10?
My number 10 is Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3.
What?
So this is kind of interesting. I thought that for the Nintendo 64, this was actually the very last game to ever release for the Nintendo 64. I did not play the Nintendo 64 version. This came out very early in the GameCube's life cycle, so that's where I first played it. And another kind of fun fact about the game, this was the first game that supported online play for the PlayStation 2. I do not believe that the GameCube version supported online play, but I have fond memories of all the Tony Hawk games, but Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, like we've talked about, just that updates to the graphics. It just seemed like the levels were, now obviously there was many Tony Hawk Pro Skater games that came later onto the GameCube, but for me, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 being the first one for the GameCube, really just showcasing its graphics. It was just a fantastic entry into the franchise. They had like these new reverb mechanics where you could kind of come down the pipes, do this little like 180 spin into a manual to keep your trick meter going and accumulating points. And it just had, as all the Tony Hawk Pro Skaters had, awesome soundtracks. Again, this just showcased amazing graphics and really was, like, I thought a good look into what the GameCube kind of could do, and just thought it was a great entry in the franchise and great game to have for the GameCube.
Yeah, I agree in terms of like graphics was certainly a big update. I think what was happening, I may or may not have read somewhere that so they made it, basically they were making the version for the GameCube at the same time they were making one for the N64. But yeah, it came out 3 months after the discontinuation of the N64. So you're right, it was the last one there. But it was also the last one in the series that followed the same formula as 1 and 2. I never played 4, but from what I understand, 4 diverged quite a bit from the basic layout of the game that you saw in 1, 2, and 3. But yeah, 3 was the last one I played.
To be honest with you, I think 3 is the last one that I have played as well in the series. So I still at some point would love to pick up the remakes of 1 and 2.
Guess what? It's on my list. I have it saved under my favorites for the Switch. Good choice at number 10. yeah, that it's definitely deserved being in the top 10. What do you got at number 9 there?
Number 9, I have a game that I believe you purchased because I'm pretty sure that I rode with you when we went down to Concord to pick this up, and it is a little known game called Prince of Persia.
What?
So I have this at number 9. I just thought that this was a fantastic game. This was like a reboot to the Prince of Persia series. I say series, but it was just a single game that came out for the regular Nintendo, I believe.
Yeah, they had it was a series of them.
Oh, it was a series.
Yeah, it was a series, but the one that started it was the one for the Nintendo.
Yep. So this was a reboot to the franchise. And it was really cool because it took a lot of their designs and kind of influence of the mechanics and movement of the game were taken from movies such as like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and The Matrix. A lot of the stunts that you could do, the running on walls, and the different acrobatic type stunts. And I don't know, have you ever heard of or played the game Ico?
I have not, but I do know there are influences from that game into this one.
Yes, there are. So Ico,
Don't ask me how I know that.
So Ico was a game that took place within a castle, and the castle felt very connected. So like they wanted in Ico, you really, depending on where you were in the castle, you kind of knew where the layout was. It felt like a real castle, how it was laid out and connected. And I read that they wanted this game to have that same sort of feeling, that you were in the world going through and kind of going up this tower, right, so to speak, and going through the city and knowing where you were. So I just thought it was a really cool game. You had the mechanics with the dagger of this with this. I think it was it the dagger itself called the Sands of Time.
It was the Dagger of Time.
Okay, the Dagger of Time.
Sands of Time that you got with it.
So you had the mechanics where you could go back in time a few seconds. If you got hit by an enemy, you could turn the clocks back while you still had the enough power, enough sands to do so. And it was just the game got very high praise. I know we both liked it a lot, so that's my number 9.
Well, another excellent game in your top 10 there, but number 9. Number 9 for me was a game I had forgotten about until we were talking this morning, and you brought it up. We have this one. I never played the sequel, but the original I liked a lot. True Crime: Streets of LA. This was released back in 2003, November 4th, and it was published by Activision. Basically, it was an open world action adventure. You were basically this LA detective who was recruited as part of this elite operations division to investigate a bombing in Chinatown. Very similar. There was a series of games that came along after Grand Theft Auto that kind of tried to mirror the success of Grand Theft Auto, and this was kind of one of them. Basically, they had a 240 square mile recreation of LA, mostly in like the Beverly Hills, Santa Monica area. I say that like I've been there, but I've never been there. But they used, I thought it was pretty impressive because they actually used satellite imaging and GPS technology to map out these areas. And like I said, there was a sequel that came out in 2005, True Crime: Streets of New York, that I never got to play. But basically it involved shooting, fighting, stealth missions, and driving around. And one thing that was really impressive about it was just the layout, but also there were several like branching missions and endings to the game depending on the decisions you made along the way and how you completed kind of each story as you went along. I thought the graphics were really good. Again, there were a lot of games on the GameCube that I thought had impressive graphics for the time. This was one of them. And then again, I just mostly found this to be very fun game to play through.
Yeah, I remember you playing through it. I remember that the story of it got kind of wild and weird. Yeah, I remember there was a Asian guy throwing burning skulls at you, burning like dragon skulls or something.
That makes perfect sense. You're in Chinatown. I mean,
yeah,
what's he gonna do?
Yeah, in LA. Yeah, makes perfect sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
That's a good game. If I had to pick actually a third honorable mention, this would probably make it onto my honorable mentions as well. Very fun game. Like you said, very GTA-esque.
Exactly. I've never played any of the Grand Theft Auto games, but because I never had a PlayStation. But when this one came along, for me, the thing that sucked me into it was the fact that I knew how good Grand Theft Auto was, and that's what I heard. And this was kind of the closest clone that I could get my hands on. So that's really probably the only reason why I picked this up. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's in my number 9 spot. Probably not one of the, in terms of gameplay, one of the best games for the GameCube, but in terms of just a fun game to play through, I liked it a lot. I just had a lot of elements to it that I enjoyed playing through.
Good pick. Good pick.
That's my number 9.
What's the number 8?
Coming at you with number 8. I'm assuming this is going to be somewhere on your list since I haven't heard it so far, but and you're probably going to yell at me for having this so far down on my list. Super Smash Brothers Melee. So I'm going to laugh. Anyways. Super Smash Bros. Melee. Okay. December 3rd, 2001, developed by our buddies over at HAL Laboratory, the creator of Kirby.
I don't think so.
I think he did. This is the sequel to the smash hit Super Smash Brothers, the N64. Basically, everybody knows the story behind this. Fighting game, characters from Nintendo. Widely popular on the GameCube, sold over 7 million copies, and Miyamoto was a co-producer on it. But you had several modes you could play through. They had a classic mode where you're just battling opponents, and then you had a boss basically at the end. One thing I really liked about this was the introduction of some of the mini games, especially the home run derby, where you use a bat and you're basically powering up to knock the sandbag as far as it's humanly possible, but you're not a human. They had a target test game they could do for a mini game on there. They had an adventure mode they could play through. But the multiplayer was really, really good. Like I said, the graphics were just far and away above what you had on the N64. And then just the amount of characters. So they had 25 total characters, which was more than double what they had in the original one. 14 of them you could start with, and then the rest you would unlock based on achievements you had. And I had also read that they wanted Solid Snake as well as Sonic in this version, but we're unable to make it happen until 12. But yeah, Super Smash Brothers Melee.
Very good pick. Very good pick. Yeah, we own this week. We own this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great game. I just thought that when you think of what you want a sequel to bring, I feel like this just knocked it out of the park as far as the different features it added, especially the adventure mode and all the different mini games that you could do. And I really liked how in the adventure mode, it gave you little kind of different scenarios. So for instance, like I remember one of them there, the little description on it was like Star Fox is using this new cloaking device, and like you need to fight. So you had to fight an invisible fox, or like you had to beat Zelda and Link as Ganondorf. And so like it was just like all these little different scenarios, and you would unlock stuff, and you could unlock different characters that way. And so it was really, really great, really fantastic game.
Yeah, I feel like when you bring up the fact about what you're looking for in a sequel is if the first one's really popular, you don't want to rewrite everything that's going on with the game. You basically want to take what made the first one successful, add to it, improve graphics, improve gameplay, make things smoother, more intuitive, and then add enjoyment and fun to it. And they pretty much did all that with the second one. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, excellent. Great game.
Ken, what do you got at number 8?
Number 8. So I need to clarify this. So number 8 is, for me, this is why I didn't make any noise on what you put at number 8. So you can't make any noise for what I put at number 8.
Okay.
I have Metroid Prime. So I have Metroid Prime at number 8 because I personally am not a big Metroid fan. Not the game itself, but just the style of game. Okay. I like the franchise. I really like the lore and the storyline. I like Samus as a character. But I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I don't have any Zelda on my list at all. So I have Prime in the place of Zelda because one, I have not played Wind Waker. I will refuse to put Ocarina of Time on the GameCube list because it originally came out for the N64. And I don't have Twilight Princess on this list because I exclusively have that for the Wii. So I have Prime on the list because I just thought it was such a revolutionary redesign of the Metroid series. And I did find that the first person aspect of it fit so perfectly. And I just thought Nintendo did a fantastic job with with just like the reboot kind of the series, and the fact that all these years later fans are just waiting this so they of course they've had 3 games in the Prime series, and
Well, 3 for the main consoles. There's been, I think, 2 on the handhelds that were part of the Prime storyline.
right, but so fans are still waiting for Metroid Prime 4, which we have a logo for, but we have not seen any actual gameplay
in production.
But that is in production for the Switch, which I probably will pick up Metroid Prime 4, just because I'm a bigger fan of first person shooters than like the normal Metroidvania style of games.
I forgot, did you play through and beat the first Metroid or Super Metroid?
I have played through and beat Super Metroid. I have,
Gotcha.
but that's the only Metroid game.
Okay.
Yeah. I haven't even beaten Prime, but I've played through a lot of Prime back because we own this game.
What about the ones for Game Boy? Did you have like Fusion or one of those? I thought you had played through.
I've played Fusion, but I've never beaten it.
Okay.
So upon doing research for this, I learned about the chronological order of the games. I was surprised to find out that the Metroid Prime takes place between the first and second game.
That is correct.
So I thought that was kind of interesting. And it actually prompted me at some point. I'm sure they have it on YouTube, but I would love to go and like read like the lore, like storyline from start to through Dread of the Metroid franchise.
Sorry, I just want to back. You said, so I think it takes place between 1 and then the second one, which came out for Game Boy. So yeah, Return of Samus.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify, it doesn't take place between Metroid and Super Metroid. Sorry.
Correct.
I may have misheard you.
Yeah.
All
right. So I have
that at your number 8.
I have that at number 8.
I guess that's a good choice, and I understand your reasoning behind the Zelda games. What do you have at number 7?
So my number 7 is one of my favorite RPGs for the system. I have Tales of Symphonia. I'm a big fan of the Tales of franchise. Obviously, starting with Tales of Fantasia for the Super Nintendo. I know both you and I really like those. Really like the games. I recently, for the PlayStation 5, played through Tales of Arise, which was also a great game. I just love that the Tales series take, obviously RPGs, people are big fans just because of most of the time the turn-based combat, but the Tales series have the action, the action combat,
like Secret Mana style.
Correct. Yeah. And so just for the GameCube, this was just a excellent RPG, excellent JRPG with the action combat, great characters, great world. Really is really not too much to say other than this was the first 3D game, in the series. So yeah, they ended up being a sequel for this game. I've never played the sequel, but
Tales of Symphonia on GameCube.
I believe it. I'm trying to remember now. Actually, I know that they were both re-released for the Wii, but I don't know if this sequel in America was released for the GameCube. Might have been just for the Wii, but also could have been for the GameCube as well.
Yeah, it probably would have been on my list. I've never played it, but if I had, I'm sure it would have been in my top 10 because I've heard great things about it, and just seeing gameplay of it looks pretty impressive.
Yep. Yeah, really fun for the system.
Very cool.
What do you got number 7?
Number 7 for me is one that was not originally on my list when I was putting this together, but then after you and I talked this morning, I bumped it into my list. Number 7, Need for Speed Underground 2. Yeah. The only reason I went with 2 was kind of like my reasoning for when I was talking about this one. I'll get some on it further on. Oh yeah, another game coming up that I picked the sequel over the original. Anyways, Need for Speed Underground 2. basically the reasoning for putting this one over the first one is just because there was more. It was kind of like you said with Melee, where they took everything that was great about Underground, and I felt like they just added to it, made things more customizable. More vehicles, more modes. I just found it a lot more enjoyable than the first one, just basically because of the updates to it. No, I was gonna say that. So one thing, well, this was much more open world oriented than the first one. So like the first one, where you select tracks and levels, was all from a menu system. The second one was basically an open world where you drive around until you got to the area where the next race was, which I thought was just really impressive again for a game on the GameCube. But there were almost 30 vehicles that you could choose from as part of it. It was widely popular, sold over 11 million copies. And I loved their drag racing and their drifting mode was probably the most fun. But then they just added like cool things where you could, when you're racing against other people, or they had like a sprint race where you had to make it from one location to another in like a given time limit. So again, I just found it to take everything I loved about Need for Speed Underground and just kind of ratchet it up a little bit for Need for Speed 2 or Need for Speed Underground 2.
Excellent pick. I can't really speak on Need for Speed Underground 2 because I've never played Need for Speed Underground 2. So I'm confused on where you would have played it.
I'm like, because I remember doing the like, maybe you were, I don't know, maybe you were sick when I was playing it and you were confined to your room the whole time.
Maybe.
I don't know. No, because I remember I definitely at least rented this and played through a big portion of it, because I remember the fact of like the roaming open world where you could just drive around to the different places when you could like start races was like a big part of this game.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I know that was a part. So I mean, you definitely played it. I just, like I said, I have no recollection of playing number 2.
Well, now you learned something there, buddy.
Now I learned.
Need for Speed Underground 2. Now I understand why you were so confused and making those funny faces.
Yeah. So, but still, I mean, excellent pick.
Yeah, I mean, this is like at the height of the whole, Fast and Furious type, movie. So, Easy Way was on my list. So, number 7, Need for Speed Underground 2. Boom.
Great pick. What do you got? Number 6.
Number 6 is going to be a game that was already on your list. Prince of Persia: Sands of Time. I mean, this, like you talked about, it was a reboot of the original. One thing I thought was interesting. So the gentleman who originally created the game, Jordan Mechner, he was part of the team for this. He originally wasn't going to be, because there was a version that came out. I say a version. There was a 3D version that came out a few years earlier, Prince of Persia 3D, which was atrocious. And he was part of the team for it, and he swore he was going to be done after that one came out. And Ubisoft, who bought the rights to the franchise, contacted him. He's like, no, like, I don't want anything to do with Prince of Persia anymore. And actually sent him some demos that they had put together. And once he saw the demos and the direction they were going, he was like, all right, I'm on board. And so he actually came in as a consultant. He was a creative consultant, partial designer, and a writer for the game once he got involved with it. But yeah, I mean, you touched on it. You have, this dagger of time, which, as you run around and do stuff, you can, if you make mistakes in certain parts, you can rewind what's happened as long as you have, the necessary equipment to go along with it. And yeah, it was developed on the Jade engine, which they had originally used for Beyond Good and Evil. And there were a bunch of aspects of the game that they wanted to introduce that they later spun off into some other games that didn't fit along with the Prince of Persia kind of series. But I thought it was interesting. You had touched on like the acrobatics were all inspired by The Matrix and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. And one thing I thought was interesting, the director of the game, he got the idea for it. He was playing another game that Ubisoft had called Donald Duck Going Quackers. And he said there were parts of the game he would play and he would die. And he was like, man, I wish I could just rewind what just happened instead of starting a level all over again. And so when he started working on Prince of Persia, that's where he got the inspiration. He was like, yeah, we should incorporate being able to rewind parts of this. And so then they worked in the idea for Sands of Time. And like, and basically the whole Sands of Time concept just came from him having to find a way to explain how they can reverse parts of the game.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Which I thought was pretty interesting. So, yeah, obviously great game, led to an atrocious movie, but a great game.
And you mentioned the fact that Ubisoft was one of the producers of the game. Makes me think of Ubisoft. Obviously, is one of the producers of the Assassin's Creed franchise. You know, the Assassin's Creed games are underneath the Ubisoft umbrella, which you can totally see the inspiration that Assassin's Creed took from Prince of Persia.
Yeah, that was one of the games when I was doing research that they mentioned. There were like aspects of it that they like the movements and the running on the walls and all that, and they actually use like body capture motion. There were things that they were trying to do in the game. They think they said there was something like 700 and some odd different body movements that they were trying to program into this, and there was a bunch of times where I had to start kind of production of the game all over again because I kept coming up with new ideas and concepts of what to do in the game. But I just found the graphics were, again, for GameCube, was really ahead of its time.
Yeah.
And it was just a fun game. Obviously, there were a bunch of, I never played any of the sequels, but I've heard the sequels are really good. And they're ones I'll probably look at some point. But yeah, the first one I absolutely loved. Great game. I played through it, beat it. Very high on my list.
Very good pick. Wish it was on my list. Oh wait, it is.
I mean, it was lower on your list, so it wasn't as good, but that's okay.
Well, for my next game at number 6
6.
Is a little known game called Need for Speed Underground
2.
No, just the first one. So
did you know I've played the second one?
I did not. No, tell me about it.
Already did. You weren't listening.
So obviously very similar reasons why I have this one on my list. But a few things I thought were really cool about Need for Speed Underground is the fact that, like you said, like with number 2, it was at the height of, I'd say, the first batch of Fast and Furious movies where there was a lot more focus on the import, scene. Racing, tuning scene. So where Need for Speed games were all about high-end, really high-end sports cars and racing, the Need for Speed Underground franchise rebooted the Need for Speed franchise and really capitalized on that import scene. So I just thought it's really cool how Need for Speed Underground featured a lot of vehicles that were very well known to be modded and tuned and used for kind of street racing and different things like that. So one of the cars, so when doing research for this game, I thought this was pretty cool, and you'll understand why when I say it. But Need for Speed Underground was the first game in the Need for Speed series to offer a Korean-made car, the Hyundai Tiburon, as a racing vehicle. And the reason why I bring that up is because I myself had a nice Hyundai Tiburon 6-speed manual V6 that came with a nice aftermarket Borla exhaust
and the stiffest suspension I've ever sat in my life.
Yeah, so obviously I did not do anything to the car. It came like that.
Sure.
But it was a pretty cool car for the time. Really nice at the time. I like driving that. So but at the time this game came out, that was not the car that I drove, because when this game came out, I did not have my license yet. So
let's see. Wait, when did this game come out? 2004, I think, right? Because I think the second one came out in 2005.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no. So the first, Need for Speed Underground was 2003, because number 2 came out in 2004.
Okay.
So let's see. Yeah, you didn't have your license for another few years.
Yeah. No. So, but I loved the tuner aspect of this. I loved how you could customize your rims, the different body kits for the car, the upgrades that you can make to it.
Wheels, the engine, the turbos,
the nitrous, the color of the nitrous,
the decals, which made it go a lot faster.
Oh yeah, everyone knows that the paint job.
Decals increase speed.
Absolutely. But yeah,
good pick a number 6 for you.
Yeah, so I really like this one. I remember that out of the starting cars, so the one thing that I do remember about this game is that after you start the game, I believe they start you with a Acura RSX Type X that you do not get to keep, but after like your first initial race, I think you total that vehicle, and then you need to pick. You like have like you
someone
pick one
sponsors you, right? I think.
Yeah, and so you can pick between like one of four, one of five vehicles, and statistically, just from like stats of the vehicles, the best car that to pick from that was the Mazda Miata. And as you go through the game, you unlock more cars that you can then purchase. You don't need to stick with that first car, but there's special races that come up that you do that give a permanent increase to a certain stat. So at the end of the game, even like the last car you unlock in the first game is a Nissan Skyline GTR. But if you
R34,
R34, yep. And if you stick with, but if you stick with the car that you start with from the beginning, that ends up statistically being the best car overall in the game. So, but I remember for whatever reason, instead of picking the Miata, I always picked the Dodge Neon for whatever reason. I just thought it looked better. But statistically, the best car in the game to start with is the Mazda Miata, which is, I know, what the car that you always started with. But I always went with the Dodge Neon, and you used to give me so much crap for it. And as I say here today, it's reasonable that you give me crap for that.
It's reasonable I give you crap for it
because it's a Dodge Neon. So yeah.
All right, what are you hitting us with at number 5, Ken?
So if we go back a little bit to your honorable mentions,
oh my goodness,
and now you'll understand why I said don't say too much about an honorable mention, because at number 5 I have Soul Calibur.
What? Super Mario Sunshine?
No, Soul Calibur 2.
Okay. Oh,
and yeah. So fun little fact: did you know that Cloud Stripe?
he was going to be in one of these games? That's amazing. I did not know that.
Yeah, so apparently it fell through right at the last minute, which I did not realize. So obviously for this game, I have not played any of the other ones except for the GameCube version, which had Link in it. But this was my first introduction into the Soul Calibur franchise, and even though this is Soul Calibur 2, this is actually the third entry in the Soul Calibur franchise. So the first game was Soul Edge, then they had Soul Calibur, and then Soul Calibur 2. So this was a really cool fighting game, I thought, because it had a big focus on every character wielding a specific weapon, and you could go through an adventure mode where you follow the storyline, and it was still just a 1v1 fighting game, but you could unlock new weapons for each character. And so I just thought it was so cool to see Link have all these different swords that you could wield, and all these different characters with specific weapons, whether it be katanas or nunchucks or bow staffs, sword and shield. I just thought that they had a really great roster of characters. Really thought it was cool to focus on the weapons, and overall was probably the best, or I should say one of the best fighting games for the GameCube, and that is at my spot for number 5.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't touch on it earlier because it's part of my honorable mentions, but yeah, you talk about how many weapons. So there are 12 weapons each character can get, from like a basic to an ultimate, and basically as you mentioned, the Soul Edge. So the Soul Edge was like the ultimate weapon, which was split into all these shards, and so the storyline is you're fighting to either put these back together to make the ultimate weapon, or destroy it kind of once and for all. But I will say, I mean, I played a little bit of Tekken, although I don't really know who that character is from Tekken that they had as the PS2 version. But if you could have had Cloud with Link and Spawn, I mean, that's a pretty sweet lineup for exclusive characters.
Yeah.
Cloud would have been pretty dope to have on there. But yeah, I guess it was some sort of licensing deal that fell through at the last minute.
So Heihachi on the PlayStation from Tekken, he's the older guy, bald in the middle with like the hair kind of gray spikes coming out. He's the main characters. So he's the main character from like the original Tekken, Jin. He's I'm sorry. I can't, his name's like Kazuya, I think it is. He's Kazuya's father, and then in like Tekken, I think 2 and 3, the main character Jin, Heihachi is Jin's grandfather, which I'm a little surprised that they added him and not either Kazuya or Jin, considering they are more the main characters of Tekken. But either way, that's not Nintendo. So anyway, yep. What's your number 5?
That was your number 5, right?
Yep.
Number 5 is once again a game that my brother introduced me to, and is also one that I picked the sequel over it's not even the original, but It's over the original from earlier in the series, or for the GameCube. I have it number 5, SSX 3.
Oh,
Yes. So this was developed by EA Canada. So we started out with SSX Tricky, the snowboarding game, and I absolutely loved it. It's such a fun game with so many tricks and like all these great things you could do. But again, kind of like with, like we're talking about with sequels, they took everything that was amazing about SSX Tricky and just like cranked it up to like volume 11 with number 3. The I read a bunch of reviews saying how like it was the best snowboarding game ever made by a lot of reviewers, and just the graphics were so impressive. They had over 30 types of snow that they developed for this game, and it was the first game. Well, it was one of the first games ever to be THX certified. Do you know what that is?
nope. Why don't you tell me?
You ever go to the movie theaters and you see like it'll have a big thing on the screen that says THX
Yep.
audio? So basically, it was a game that was like awarded excellence for the music and just like the sound within the game. So it was like right around this time that they started certifying games as THX certified, and this was like one of the first games ever in existence to get that certification.
Very cool.
Yeah, so it was, and the other thing that was pretty amazing is it was what was different from SSX Tricky was the free roam ability. You could basically start at the top of the mountain and work your way through every single course with 0 load screens all the way to the very bottom of the mountain, which was just very impressive, especially for being on like a small disc to have all that data in there. Just the gameplay was so much fun. There were so many collectibles in the game. The replay value I felt was excellent because there were so many. They had like you had races that you could do. You had time trials. You could pull off these Uber tricks that you could have. They had an adrenaline meter. But with the collectibles, there were so many things you could collect, and it just kind of not forced you, but allowed you to go back through and play through different paths to collect other things. They had a super pipe that you could do. They had a freestyle where you could like battle against other racers as you're going down the mountain. It was just a super fun game. I absolutely loved SSX3.
Yeah, wonderful picks. Like you said, we own both of them. Obviously, starting with Tricky.
Get tricky.
Yeah,
place I know that song for.
Yeah, so obviously that's Run DMC did the song, and the SSX Tricky game. Obviously that song I believe came out in the early 90s, and this game came out in the 2000s, so made that song really popular. Brought it back. But yeah, I agree, really great games. Love those games. I would love to see a remake of SSX Tricky to come back. I know you had SSX3, but I may touch on SSX a little later.
Oh, well, going with the vibe of, I was going to say touching on something that you touched on, but it sounded a little weird. At number 4, I have Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3.
Ah, wow.
I mean, what can I say that hasn't already been said? But I will try. Ken, did you know this was the last game ever made for the N64?
No, really?
It was, yeah. I just, everything said. It was an amazing game. You had 13 professional skateboarders, and then there were several of like unlockable originals. So you didn't touch on that you could unlock Darth Maul as a skateboarder, the guy from Doom, Wolverine, and then you had Sean Palmer and Kelly Slater. We could also unlock as playable characters. It was widely considered probably one of the greatest skateboarding games of all time. Won tons of Game of the Year awards when it came out. It was just a fantastic game. It took everything that was great about 1 and 2, just greatly enhanced the graphics. The gameplay was so much smoother. You touched on the fact that you could have like on vert, you could combine tricks where you weren't able to do that before, and just have like these run-on high scores. Gameplay was amazing. Absolutely love Tony Hawk Pro Skater series, and number 3 was one of the best in the series for sure.
Yep, absolutely. I'm glad that you have it on your list. Certainly it made mine at number 10, but you asked me again on a different day, it could easily fall easily. No, it could fall anywhere on the list. So great pick.
Number 4 for me. What's your number 4, Ken?
My number 4 is a game that I know you have not played, but it is Fire Emblem Path of Radiance.
I knew Fire Emblem would be somewhere on your list.
So I know we clown on tactical RPGs a lot, or just tactical games in general. I personally, I am not a big fan of tactical RPGs, but I do love the Fire Emblem
which I
franchise.
find interesting because yeah, we always talk about how they're not our favorites, but Fire Emblem isn't just like a game you like, but the whole series you talk about it a lot, in that you love so many aspects of it.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's probably just because it has a very anime feel to it.
That makes sense.
You know, I honestly, I was first introduced to the characters, as I imagine a lot of people were. I was first introduced to them through Super Smash Brothers Melee. You had two characters, Marth and Roy, which neither of those characters are in Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. The main character in this game is Ike, who wouldn't be added into the Smash Brothers game until Super Smash Brothers Brawl. But I didn't even know what Fire Emblem was. Now there were Fire Emblem games for the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance. Actually, I don't. I think in America, I take that back. Could be wrong. I don't think it was for the Game Boy. I think it was just for the Game Boy Advance that I have played since. I never played them when I was a kid. So my first introduction to an actual Fire Emblem game was the one Fire Emblem Path of Radiance for the GameCube. This was the 9th title overall for Fire Emblem, but it was only the 3rd title to be released in North America. So I believe that the other 2 were for Game Boy Advance. So this also, I think, is what introduced people to the Fire Emblem franchise after the characters from Melee. It just, like I said, the it's a tactical RPG, but the RPG aspects of it are so well done, and the storyline is so well done. There's a lot of times with these games, they have different modes as far as how hard the game is, and on the what a lot of people, tried and true Fire Emblem fans, like, is what's considered like a hardcore mode, where if someone in your party ends up getting killed on the battlefield, it's permadeath. They're done. They're out of the game storyline. So there's a real sense of like danger.
Finality.
Yeah, when you play, which to me that adds an element that it's really strange, because in most cases you would think that I would not like that element, but for some reason I do. It's really cool. There's a relatively easy and basic rock paper scissors system with weapons, whether it's like swords beat axes beat spears, and spears beat axes. There's some sort of, and then there's magic that falls in. But then there's also, as you level up your different units, you can increase their like their class. So like a knight you could turn into, let's just say, for example, like a horse knight. So then they can like move extra spaces, or use better weapons, or use different weapons. Someone who could only use a sword before can now be able to use a sword and a bow, and so it just gives you different tactical advantages. But in all these games, it's always top-notch storytelling, and with the tactical overlay. It was really cool. This game, Path of Radiance, it featured 3-dimensional graphics on the battlefield that replaced the 2-dimensional sprite animations, and the landscapes at this time were also rendered in 3D. So it looked really good. It just was a brand new polish, especially from just North Americans coming from the Game Boy Advance games to now a full-fledged GameCube game. Really excelled the series up, and kind of kept that genre going forward into the later Nintendo franchise, Nintendo systems. So I have cool. Path of Radiance at my number 4 because of how influential it was to the series and to North American fans to keep the franchise going.
Mm-hmm. What do you get at number 3?
Number 3, I have actually number 4, and by that I mean Resident Evil 4.
Boom.
So I know that this is going to be coming up on your list. So,
what do you mean? How do you?
So this is one of our favorite games. This is by far my favorite Resident Evil game. Yes. I'm not a fan of horror in general. So in horror games like this, not really up my alley. But Resident Evil 4, I think it blew so many people away. I mean, just the
Yeah.
different awards that it got. The storyline, great third person shooter, and even though it really it had very light, almost RPG esque sort of aspects to it. Just with the upgrading of the guns and the different upgrades that you could get as you proceeded through the game. I thought the level design was excellent. The story was excellent. So I played through it. I watched you play. I watched you play through it. I love the quick time events that would pop up throughout the game. You had to, something would happen. You had to quickly hit the right button at the right time that to signal it.
Yeah.
So it was really, really cool. It was really scary. And I won't say too much more because again, can only guess that's gonna be coming up on your list. So I'll discuss more.
Great game being in your top 5 at number 4. Yes.
Yeah.
So moving over to my number 3. So 3 and 2, I'm just gonna say I cheated a little bit because these were on systems that weren't just available on GameCube. But number 3, I have Twilight Princess, Legend of Zelda. This one I primarily played on the Wii, but it was a late arrival to the GameCube, and it's just a phenomenal game, which is why I included it. I do understand your reasoning earlier that you didn't include it on your list because it was primarily a Wii game, and I get that, but I cheated and put it on my list.
That's
I've
fine.
never played through Wind Waker. One thing I thought was interesting is that the team that developed this was also the same team that developed Wind Waker, and it was actually intended as a Wind Waker sequel. However, as we had touched on, Miyamoto's one who came along and realized that the reception to Wind Waker was not as strong or as impressive as they wanted, and he was afraid that the same thing was going to happen with the sequel. So that's why they went in a different direction in terms of gameplay and kind of went with a much more darker tone. So he was afraid that sales of this would be low after kind of low sales of Wind Waker. And one thing they really wanted to do is he was focused more on things that they couldn't do in previous Zelda games because of the capabilities of the hardware. For instance, on Ocarina of Time, he really wanted to do like horseback combat. And they couldn't do that before, so they introduced it into this one. He had mentioned previously that like his inspiration for the early, like when he was trying to develop games, the original Zelda game, partly was as a result of like his exploration as a kid, but he was also a huge fan of Lord of the Rings. And so a lot of the landscape for Twilight Princess this came out just a few years after the Lord of the Rings movies came out. And when he saw those, he wanted to incorporate kind of that landscape into this game. But the thing I thought was interesting, so the director of the game, E.G. Anuma, his idea for turning into a wolf came when he was on a business trip and he had a dream that he had turned into a wolf and was stuck in a cage and he couldn't get out. And it was afterwards he kind of came up with the idea of like transitioning back and forth between a wolf for this game. But yeah, Twilight Princess, definitely one of my favorite Legend of Zelda games. It's definitely up there. Again, I primarily played through it on the Wii, but I included it in our GameCube listing as well.
That's fine. I forgive you.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So I do think that the cool thing though is depending on what system you played it on, it was a mirror image of the other. So, like for instance, on the GameCube and on Twilight Princess, let's just say on one of the maps, if you were going up a road and all the buildings were on the left, while on the Wii version, all the buildings was on the right. Yeah. So the map was just a mirror image of each other, depending on which one you played.
I felt like once the Wii came along, the capabilities in terms of like shooting an arrow and aiming and stuff was obviously far superior than what you had on the GameCube, which leads me into my number 2. A game that Ken, you may have played. Have you ever played Resident Evil 4?
Never. Nope.
Yeah, so this is one I started on the GameCube and I was halfway through this game. So it came on a 2-disc set for the GameCube because of the mini disc. I just made it into the very beginning of disc 2 after you rescue the president's daughter, and then we got the Wii, and it was like one of the first games we got for the Wii was Resident Evil 4. And then I started all over, played through it, which playthrough was much better on the Wii. Obviously, again, because of more enhanced graphics, and then just aiming with the Wii controller was a lot more intuitive than using a GameCube controller. But again, this was out for a while into the life cycle of GameCube. But yeah, this was originally planned as a GameCube exclusive, and then later on was ported to several other consoles. But widely popular, sold over 11 million copies. And then they focused, like I said, this, you had said you're not really big into the horror genre, and neither am I. But I think the reason this works so well is even though there are a lot of scary moments, their focus on this game was the action and the shooting, which is not always, a lot of the other horror ones or ones in the series are more like stealth oriented, I feel like. But I feel like that's why this one works so well. And what was so impressive, especially with the system, is like your shooting had effects depending on where you hit people. So like if you shot a zombie in the foot, they would start stumbling. If you shot them in the arm, they were holding like a weapon or an object, they would drop those items. Or it also introduced where if somebody was like throwing something at you, you could shoot it out of the air and stop that item from coming at you, which it was just super impressive for, I feel like, for that time. And just their attention to detail. When I was reading about this, the developers, the team spent 11 days in the UK and Spain just photographing different areas and mapping out areas. That way they could have it like as realistic as possible when the game came out.
Yeah, that's really cool. Having all those features definitely, it's funny how what one might think nowadays as a little feature. It's amazing how the feel that it gave that that game at the time. Really cool having that
it
in
just
there.
immersed you more into the game. I felt like by those attention to details more than anything. But yeah, like you said, I'm not a huge fan of the horror genre either. There were plenty of moments in this game where you were like just startled and surprised by stuff that scared the shit out of you. And it worked so well. I mean, the first time you come across like one of the guys with the chainsaws,
Oh yeah,
or you come into the giant pit and there's the giant monster that attacks you like early on in the game. And then
there's the maze. There's the maze part where the dogs are chasing you.
Oh my god, the freaking dogs! I hated that part. And then once the villagers, who have this parasite, they start evolving and they're splitting out of your head. So sometimes you would like shoot a villager and you'd be like, "Oh, I'm gonna shoot him in the head. He's gonna be dead." And he's right in front of you, and then all of a sudden this freaking monster pops out of its neck, and you're like, "Oh shit, he's not dead."
Nope.
Yeah, huge fan. And you can't forget the most important part of Resident Evil 4. Anytime you had to buy some items. Welcome.
You want to see my wares? Close your jacket.
Those wares? Sure, I'll buy something. And then you have like this. I love it. You could like upgrade your suitcase to carry different amounts of items, and I would spend a half an hour just rearranging all the guns so they would be like
fit nicely in your suitcase.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden you would just like tuck the suitcase away somewhere and just run it around. Like, where's this amazing magic suitcase that fits in his pocket?
Yeah, that was a really cool game. And the game itself actually had really great replay value because depending on the different, how many collectibles that you found throughout the game, you could unlock just different special things and to replay through the game again. Like I remember you could unlock a Tommy gun that had like I may even have had unlimited ammo. Mm-hmm. So you could just full auto just mow down, all the bad guys. And then in the part of the game where you had to have, I believe the girl's name was Ashley, that you had to have follow you. You could get her a suit of armor, like that old school, like knight's armor that she could wear. So that way to protect her. Yeah. So the bad guys couldn't pick her up and take her away, and she couldn't get hurt because she was wearing the suit of armor. So it made replaying the game again, not quite as scary, but it was pretty fun to go back through. So that's something.
But one aspect of the game that I never understood, it made sense. Why do you save the game on a typewriter?
Because that's all they had in the village. It's an old village, old tech.
Old tech. So you save the game with a typewriter. You're like, oh, gotta save my data. Ting, 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 ting. Ting, 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 ting. Other than that, it's an amazing game.
It is excellent.
I give it
game.
a 9.9 on my scale. If it didn't have a typewriter, it'd gotten a 10.
Minus 0.1 for typewriter.
Minus 0.1 for typing. What do you got at number 2?
So number 2 is a game that you touched on already. I have SSX Tricky. So the reason why I have SSX Tricky is because just like kind of Need for Speed Underground and Metroid Prime prior. I could have gone with the later games, which all had extra features. I just went with these because this is what started it off. This is what started it all. And for me, this is more nostalgic.
Yeah, I get that.
I definitely, I feel that I spent myself way more time playing SSX Tricky, just because 3 came out later in the GameCube's life cycle.
True.
So yeah, Tricky just I can't even remember where I heard of this game, where I first played it. I just remember us owning it and just loving this game. Just the multiplayer on it, the tricks, I loved how you could go through with each character, and right from the beginning of the game, you had a trick book that listed all the different tricks that your character could do.
That's true.
And if you went through the trick book and completed every single trick, and some of them were really hard to do with the inputs and the combos that you had to do while in air. But if you went through and completed the entire trick book, it would actually unlock the best snowboard for your character. So if you did that at the very beginning, do the trick book, you could unlock your best snowboard from the very beginning of the game, which I thought was awesome. And like you touched on with number 3, all the different modes. This obviously, it didn't have the free roam like 3 did, which was an awesome feature of 3, but there were still the competitive modes, the freestyle modes, the racing modes, and like the storyline that you followed through the game and through the different characters. You could unlock different outfits for the characters, as well as, like I said, you could unlock the best snowboard, but there was multiple different snowboards that you could unlock. I thought it had a great soundtrack, like Tony Hawk. It just a really phenomenal game, and actually a game that I'll be looking at to see if it's on the list for when PlayStation has their PlayStation does like their PlayStation the PlayStation Network Pass there.
The not Spartacus.
The not Spartacus.
Yeah.
I'll be curious to see if SSX is anywhere on the list.
Yeah, this is one of many games I could say in my lifetime that one thing that I always loved about you is you always introduced me to games that for one reason or another I never would have thought of playing, and they turned into be like amazing games that I'm so grateful. When I think about SSX Tricky and Mass Effect and Red Dead Redemption, and I think about probably Super Smash Brothers, things like that, where I just maybe have never would have picked up a game, and you were like, oh, somebody told you about it, so you had to get it, and then I was just like hooked in it after that. This was one of them where I never would have probably thought of like, oh, we got to pick up this snowboarding game, and it turned into like some of our favorite games to play.
Yeah, I mean, because certainly, I know that we both played 1080 snowboarding, which is a great game in its own right, but SSX just really
4 levels above 1080.
Yeah, it's just an excellent franchise. Really hope that they do something in the future again with this game, because I know that it's a very, very much loved game. So I have SSX Tricky at number 2.
I think I can guess what your number 1 is.
I think you can. So it's really funny because your number 8 is my number 1, and I'm guessing that my number 8 is going to be your number 1. So my number 1 is Super Smash Brothers Melee. And the reason why I have this at number 1, where now this is something that it may not necessarily be my absolute favorite GameCube game. I had to put it at number 1 because I think that it's the most influential GameCube game to come out, as for Melee being still all these years later in gaming and fighting tournaments. Melee is still one of the preferred games that in fighting tournaments. Obviously the new Super Smash Brothers game, the most recent one, that's up there as well. But for so long, so many people preferred Melee when it came to the game's franchise, because between Melee you had Super Smash Brothers Brawl, which came out for the Wii and the Wii U, and then you had the new Super Smash Brothers game. I'm sorry, they had Brawl. You had Brawl for the Wii, and then you had you just had new Super Smash Brothers for the 3DS and the Wii U, and then you had Super Smash Brothers Ultimate for the Switch. But since Melee, this is what people preferred to play. So like you already touched on the added, it featured 25 characters, which was double from the previous game. The new stages, the gameplay modes. It brought so much to the franchise and has just been a game that has really stood the test of time. And so for just how influential this game is, and it's a game that we owned, that we both put so much time in. I've owned every single Smash Brothers from then on. To me, for the GameCube, this has to be number one.
Yeah, I think I look at it like if you were to give me a game that I would play with other people, it would have to be number one on my list. Like you could probably play this one for hours and hours with friends and family and whatnot, and have so much fun doing it. Yeah, I got no issue with it being at your number one. Good choice.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So without further ado, Taylor, what's your number one?
My number one, you're right, Metroid Prime. This this is kind of an odd one for me. And it's one that still stings a little bit. And I will tell you why, because I loved this game. I played all the way through this game. And so help me God, if this trilogy does not get released on Switch at some point, I'm going to be so mad because I need to go back and play through this at some point.
Why? Why, Taylor?
I played through this entire game. Absolutely loved it. Made it to the final boss. Played against him, I think, once or twice. Died. And I'm like, all right, cool. And we got called downstairs for dinner. And I was like, all right, cool. I'll come back and play this and beat this later on tonight or tomorrow or whatever. And I don't know what happened, but I never ever picked up the controller to play this game again. And I've yet to beat this game. And I don't know why. I don't know what happened. I just know is that I made it to the final boss. I played him once and then dinner came along and I never finished the damn game. And it sticks with me to this day, almost 20 years later. But it's in terms of graphics, I think this was like the pinnacle of a GameCube game. I graphics of this game I feel like still hold up today. It was so impressive. And it was actually developed as a third person kind of shooter style. But interesting enough, Miyamoto's the one who stepped in and asked Retro to turn this into a first person shooter because of all the challenges that Rare had when making Jet Force Gemini.
Oh, interesting.
Which I did not realize, but he stepped in and was like, you guys are really struggling with this. Let's turn it to a first person shooter, which eased a lot of the gameplay. It did force them to kind of start a lot of the process over, but it was a lot easier to go through this. But they did say, Retro said when they were making it, that morphing into the ball, because when it morphs into a ball, it then goes into a 3D third person perspective.
Right.
It caused a lot of challenges. But it took, I think, this technology to kind of bring this to the next level. I guess, so they never made a Metroid game for the N64. And when interviewed about it, I guess there were several companies that they approached about doing a 3D Metroid game for it. And a bunch of the companies they went to said they could not imagine a way to improve upon how it was with Super Metroid from the Super Nintendo. And which I thought was kind of better, just let it be dormant rather than put out a crappy game and potentially kill an entire franchise.
Sure.
If you didn't feel like you had a great idea for it, they just kind of let it be. But I think just to go on to prove how amazing this game was, when I was researching this, it is still listed by Metacritic as one of the highest rated games of all time. Not just for its era. I mean, to this day, it's one of the highest rated games ever on Metacritic. I absolutely love Metroid Prime. I don't care what anybody says. It's part of the storyline.
The thing that blew me away, I think most about this game was, towards the so just after like the introduction part of the game, I remember when we had this. So you're like in like this kind of jungle looking area,
Yep.
And there's a flash of lightning, and the way the light reflects from. So those of you who don't know, those of you who don't know, the main character Samus is this female who's wearing this like futuristic. I mean, really think of like an astronaut suit. Yeah. And in the visor, when the lightning flashes, you actually see a reflection of your face like through the glass, which I was so cool and just really unexpected. So
like I said, when I look at this game still to this day and I see like video footage of it, it just looks still so cutting edge. Like I feel like this could have been a game that just came out on the Switch or the Wii. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
just I think it really pushed the GameCube's limits graphically, and I just absolutely loved it. I think the style of it was so impressive. And I've never picked up 2 or 3, but obviously I know number 4 is in development now. Hopefully it'll be out next year or 2024. It'd be nice.
Yes.
And I'll definitely pick it up whenever it comes out. But
So
at some point, need to pick this back up and finish what I started all those years ago.
absolutely. Yeah. If and when they come out with the Metroid Prime collection for the Switch, I definitely will be picking it up and playing through it
too.
So excellent choice, excellent list. This was a lot of fun. I'm glad we went through this.
I know. I'm glad we expanded from our top 5 to a top 10. And I was trying to think. So we had, let's see, how many out of our top 10? We had Metroid Prime, Resident Evil 4, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3. I guess you would count SSX and
Need for Speed. Yep.
Prince of Persia.
Yep.
And Super Smash Brothers Melee. So 8 of our 10 were in each other's list. So I had Luigi's Mansion and True Crime, which you didn't have. And then you had Fire Emblem and what was the other one you had on there?
No, so we had 7. I had Fire Emblem, Soul Calibur, and Tales of Symphonia.
So I had Soul Calibur in my honorable mentions.
Yeah.
What did? I just miscounted. Yeah. So we had 7 that was on our list. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
None of ours were at the same spot there.
No.
Oh. Well.
But that's pretty good. But so we actually so first off, let us know what you guys think about the lists, if these are just trash or not. But not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but we actually do know what we're going to be talking about next week. And this is also something that we're really excited about. So next week, we're going to be talking about the top 10 games that we would put in our game room. So the idea behind this is, if say you build your dream house and you have a game room. So now these would all be stand-up cabinets
or tabletops.
Pinball. So top 10 games that you would put in your game room. Really, really pumped for this one.
Yeah, this will be good. How did we were talking about this week. You brought up the GameCube, and then I mentioned something about I was like, let's do a top 10 in terms of like stand-up cabinets, like things that you'd have, like games you'd play at an arcade, and you spun that off a little bit into game room, which would be cool.
Yeah. So
I'm pumped for next week. That'll be good.
That'll be a fun one. Yeah.
So this is a good list. I'll be putting together another collage to put on our Instagram account, listing off our top 10. And I can't wait for the hate mail to come in from all the Nintendo fanboys on the Facebook groups.
Just post it on Sega.
I know, just post it on Sega. And they're like, oh, these are amazing. Of course, there was GameCube. They'll be like, I've never played any of these. Well, another job well done.
Yes.
Excellent week.
Broloni, thank you so much.
Oh. Bro Schmoni.
Baloney.
Baloney.
But where can they catch us, Taylor?
They can catch us here, there, and everywhere. Well, we have our email, theweirdbrotherspodcast@gmail.com, on our Instagram account, also at Weird Brothers Podcast, and on Twitter. And Facebook. Yes, we have our, for going on a couple weeks now, our Facebook page of the Weird Brothers Podcast, which has been blowing up. And last week we surpassed 300 members on our Instagram account. Thank you all.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you everyone for the support. Much love.
And hopefully we have been struggling mightily with our volume on these podcasts, trying to make these damn microphones work the way we intend them to. And hopefully, finally, this week, everything will sound great and amazing, and you will love us all for it.
Yes.
So if you're still here after the first 10 episodes, God bless you for sticking around. I told you in the very first episode it might get better, and I'm finally following through on that promise.
And I told you that it would get better.
Yes, that's right. You did. Ever the optimist.
So next week, same bro channel.
Same bro time. Top 10
Games in an arcade room.
Games in an arcade room. Oh, geez. We're working on it. We are a work in progress.
Yes.
All right. Peace out, Cub Scout.
Later, brother.
Catch you later, alligator.
We're brothers.
In a while, crocodile. We're brothers. Peace.